Real true blue comedy festivals haven't really been a thing in recent years, or at least anyone's of note. I'm sure that there has been a bunch of, lounge acts that are out there that get together in a big old sewing circle and tell some politically correct jokes every now and again. But the times of, the mid to late 90s when the Just for Laughs festival was a real comedy festival, when you had A-listers across the political spectrum come through and serve up their A material for the world to see. It's a rarity nowadays, and of course it speaks to a wider problem with comedy in general, but somebody who's trying to bring back, or at least a country that is trying to bring back the comedy festival, is our Habibi friends out there in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. And well, recently, not exactly entirely sure of the specific date, but they decided to snatch up every single A-list comedian that they could possibly get their hands on, pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars up front with the promise of millions more if they delivered on their performance, if they would come over like so many other professionals in recent years and bend over and grab their ankles for the Crown family. And to be completely honest, man, as a professional getting paid for a gig, I don't really care, okay? Like, of the people that are there, and especially, the touring comics in today's day and age, I don't really like most of them. But the ones that are getting the most shit right now, oh my God, it's so beautiful because their hypocrisy is getting exposed for the world to see. So yeah, this is one of those instances where I don't really have a dog in this fight. I just want to watch the left eat itself, and it's been a glorious feast over this past week and change. So why Saudi Arabia's comedy washing scheme is so insidious. Comedy capital of America is New York City. Yeah, no, I'd agree with that, but Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, is giving it a run for its money at the moment with the inaugural Riyadh Comedy Festival, a state-sponsored event. And that is putting on shows featuring dozens of the biggest names in American comedy, including Dave Chappelle, funny guy, Louis C.K. He's a complete fucking head case in his jam for jerking off into potted plants. I don't quite understand, but yeah, Louis is a funny guy. Kevin Hart, I digress. Oh God, Bill Burr, who we will be focusing in on, don't you fret. Jessica Kirson, what? Aziz Ansari. Oh, didn't he get canceled for having a bad date? And Pete Davidson. All right, so Chappelle and Louis C.K., two guys who came up together in the cut. Okay, that totally makes sense because Louis C.K. I think he wrote for the Chappelle Show, right? But anyways, many of the comics attending are taking heat, deservedly so, from other comedians and human rights groups. Yes, in the light of the Saudi government's track record of human rights abuses. Really, Saudi Arabia's use of what we could call comedy washing is an insidious tool to project a misleading image of the country's incremental efforts to liberalize. These comics should know better than to help launder the country's reputation in exchange for a fat paycheck. I mean, I've been hearing all of this criticism of Saudi Arabia and them wanting women to cover up their own gays off of just degenerates and morally corrupt alike. I mean, you're not really doing much to win me to your side by saying that those are the evil guys. They kind of seem like they're running an upstanding society, but aren't these the same people that are rallying around the likes of Jimmy Kimmel by saying that the United States is a ever-increasing totalitarian state? I think that your moral compass is a little bit fucked up. But leave it to the CBC, that's what we have pulled up right here, to have a terrible take on things and then also to employ one of the worst people imaginable. I mean, I pulled this up just as a means to do a little bit of extracurricular research, and then I seen a name that's right there in the byline, and it's like, of course, my taxpayer money would be going towards employing this fucking dishwasher. Comedy festivals to women's football. Saudi Arabia is expanding its cultural power. Journalists Shireen Ahmed and Alyssa Mercante, I wish I was making this up, discuss the country's cultural investment strategy. Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr, Pete Davidson, and other A-list comedians are currently performing in Riyadh Comedy Festival in Saudi Arabia, but others including Mark Maron and Tim Dillon. I'm pretty sure Tim Dillon's gay, right? But he got approached by the Saudis to come and perform, but on Tim Dillon's podcast, he decided to take the shit after accepting the retainer out of Saudi Arabia, and then he got disinvited. He didn't have to give up the retainer after all, but shout out to him for at least having a laugh at this. Because yeah, you're hired on as a comedian, and what is the first thing that a comedian should probably do if they're going to do their job correctly? Take the piss out of the people in power. But seeking to change its image on the global stage, Saudi Arabia is now investing heavily in cultural power, comedy, yes, women and men's soccer teams and gaming companies, fucking combat sports. How many events is the UFC, well, TKO in general, the UFC and the WWE holding over there on a yearly basis? Fuck's sakes, man. Like Dana White had brokered prior to the TKO merger, had already brokered a very lucrative deal with Dubai in the UAE, and they were hosting quite a few events, especially during pandemic times over there. Fuck, they made them an island, Fight Island, for Christ's sakes. And now with the TKO obligations, they're hosting a couple of cards a year over there. And the WWE in coming years, well, this upcoming Royal Rumble in January is going to be in Riyadh, and WrestleMania, what would that be, 43? And 2027 is going to be out there. It's going to be Saudi Mania, brother. So yeah, they're just buying up everything because, well, they have the disposable income. And they figured out something that the ultra wealthy have had to wrestle with in recent years, pun not intended. And money is all well and good, but what you really want at the end of the day is power and influence. So that's what they're using their vast amount of wealth in order to accrue. It's just not quite as smooth of a transition as they probably thought it would be. So without causing you to bleed from your ears, I just want to read one excerpt from Alyssa Mercante before we move on to another article that I find to be far more hilarious. Bill Burr is the guy 5 months ago who was railing against selfish and greedy CEOs. Yeah, Bill Burr, the Luigi Mangione apologist. He's just taking money from selfish and greedy CEOs on the other side of the world, and it's a really strange. But I think what we learned, or at least I've learned in the past 6 to 8 months, is I don't think that there's any check that people will turn down if it's big enough. Bitch, you actively hate video games and gamers, and you worked for Kotaku for how long? Oh, okay, cool. Glad that you just came to that realization in the past 6 to 8 months that you've been waiting tables. Pete Davidson, whose father died during 9/11, and he saw the route, and he saw the number, and he went. But to be fair, yeah, if this was like 2018, 2020, Pete Davidson, he probably could have taken the moral high ground and looked like a savior of the left. But all of those opportunities, yeah, they kind of dried up the same time Kim Kardashian's cooch did. Then you got the Washington Post writing an op-ed rebuking Dave Chappelle and other top comedians for performing at the Saudi Comedy Festival. Washington Post editorial board on Tuesday shredded the stand-up comedians who worked the Riyadh Comedy Festival in Saudi Arabia, calling it a bad joke that they took money from the repressive regime. In the latest editorial, the board rebuked roughly 50 comics, including Chappelle, Louis C.K., Whitney Cummings, and Bill Burr, who accepted lucrative paychecks from a nation long criticized for censorship and human rights abuses. 50 comedians walk into the repressive Gulf Kingdom. That sounds like the beginning of a bad joke, but there's little funny about some of the best-known Western comics trekking to Saudi Arabia, collecting large paychecks and agreeing to censor themselves at the Riyadh Comedy Festival, which runs through Thursday. It also kind of sounds like it's an endorsement of the event. Yeah, come and check out some of the biggest names in comedy. Don't worry about it. It's all great. The board criticizes Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, for hosting the festival, claiming it's just the latest in a string of attempts to divert attention from the company's atrocious human rights records by hosting showy international events. Can we point to any ones in particular? I know we're still big mad about the what was his name, Jamal Khashoggi or some shit like that from years gone by, but can we get into the details of that? No, it's just Saudi's repressive because they have oil money and they're also very amenable to conservative leanings. But yeah, it's funny, right? Because these would be all the same people that are queers for Palestine, but then they don't want to walk it back and realize, okay, what's the underpinning ideology of places like Saudi Arabia? Oh, okay, cool. This is where they all just kind of short circuit. But the comedy festival's timing was particularly cruel. It overlapped, yes, with the 7th anniversary of the murder and dismemberment of Post contributing columnist Jamal Khashoggi, yes, at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul on October 2nd, 2018, the board wrote. But yeah, it's interesting. You never wanted to get to the bottom of that now, did you? But okay, cool. Of the comics themselves defended themselves. I think Dave Chappelle took the high road, at least from what I could tell, by saying, yeah, it was a paycheck. I had a good time. If you're mad, oh well. People have tried to cancel me before. Sucks to suck, I guess. Louis C.K., yes, defends the decision to perform at the Riyadh Comedy Festival as a good opportunity. I mean, for him to reestablish himself on a big stage, 100% agree. Trying to appeal to an audience that finds women to be analogous to potted plants? I mean, you couldn't find a more sympathetic crowd than that. So yeah, it's probably a great opportunity for him. But what about Aziz Ansari being questioned by Jimmy Kimmel? Oh my God, what? 6.3 million people would have seen... Oh no, I'm sorry. Closer to like 1.5 million people would have seen this interview because this wasn't on the night of his big return, and we recently have gone over the ratings collapse of Jimmy Kimmel, who unfortunately wasn't invited to the event. Aw, shucks. But people are questioning why you would go over there and take the money to perform in front of these people. Oh, because once again, Aziz Ansari probably isn't getting too many phone calls. To keep it a buck. Ansari appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live on Monday, October 6th to promote his feature directorial debut, Good Fortune. Toward the end of the interview, Kimmel took the opportunity to ask Ansari about his choice to perform at the festival. People are questioning why you would go over there and take money to perform in front of these people. Ooh, what do you mean, these people? This is something that's become a big part of the news because people, a lot of comedians especially, are very upset because, well, they didn't get the call and they're missing out on hundreds of thousands of dollars because they're a bunch of jealous fucks. They've done a lot of bad things. They're not good people, blah, 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 all the same moralistic talking points. I'm curious why he decided to do that. Ansari noted, it's something I put a lot of thought into before deciding to accept the invitation. Yeah, there was enough zeros on the end of the check. I have an aunt that lived there for a while and I talked to her about this and she said, you know, there's people over there that don't agree with the stuff that the government is doing, and they ascribe it like the worst behavior of the government onto those people, so that's not fair. Just like there's people in America that don't agree with the things that the government is doing, right? And Kimmel continued to press Ansari, saying that while the American government is doing horrible things, can't cite any of those, he called out Saudi's government for extreme atrocities, saying they murdered a journalist. That's the only thing that you got, huh? But you don't have any particulars on that. But as for the guy who's taken the most shit, which I think is incredibly justifiable, the biggest hypocrite, somebody that I have been on the ass of for years at this point in time, Bill Burr, somebody who I think gets an inordinate amount of praise for having lukewarm takes at best. Well, he's not exactly faring all that well. The guy who in recent years, yes, has championed, bringing millionaires to task until, of course, he became a millionaire himself. Then it was the billionaires that need to be held responsible. Or how, back in the cut, he would lampoon all of those Star Wars nerds until he got a recurring role in The Mandalorian. Then all of a sudden, he shut the fuck up about Star Wars. Like, the dude's a hypocrite. Not even to mention how he treated Anthony Cumia, all because he's scared of his black wife. But Burr says backlash to Riyadh Comedy Festival is full of straight up lies, but his fans aren't buying it. Well, yeah, because he knows he doesn't have a leg to stand on. And if he continues to, assault the fan base that he cultivated for himself, he knows that this is going to be the end of the road. Oh, that's too bad. Bill Burr is doubling down on his defense of the Riyadh Comedy Festival and its participants, calling critics of the event sanctimonious and accusing them of taking his comments out of context. Unfortunately for Burr, there's no context where the royals loved the show doesn't read like him bootlicking a bunch of billionaires. Oh, yeah, because if you weren't so staunch in your opposition to said billionaires, that would be fine. Saying that, yeah, the people that hosted the event really liked it, but you look like a hypocrite there, Billy boy. At the end of last month, Burr headlined the Riyadh Comedy Festival, a comedy event funded by the Saudi royal family and organized by the General Entertainment Authority chairman, Turki al-Sheikh, and the advisor to the royal court, who has had the entire wing of the Riyadh jail named after him for how many dissidents he has detained there. Despite his orchestration of the Riyadh Comedy Festival, al-Sheikh apparently didn't make much of an impression on Burr because the comedian can never seem to remember the fact that the royal court organized the event and that the royal family personally cut him a check. Although right now Burr probably wishes they could take a page out of al-Sheikh's book regarding the treatment of journalists. Yes, on yesterday's episode of the Monday Morning podcast, Burr went on the offensive against critics of the Riyadh Comedy Festival, claiming that bad faith actors in the media are keeping the story alive in order to make more money. Oh, it's all of you rage baiting and trying to get clicks in order to, smear my good name. However, knowing what Burr is willing to do for some blood and oil soaked cash, Burr's fans are declining his gilded victim card. So yes, it's so funny, right? Because it's a comedy festival in a foreign nation. Shit like this happens all the goddamn time. It's just when you take a look at the modern landscape of your average stand-up comedian, they're bigger leftists than Mao and Stalin combined. So when you expose them as the hypocrites that they so blatantly are, all of their other leftist fans that are out there, they will turn on them so quickly and so ferociously. At this point in time, I don't need to defend them. They're doing a shitty enough job defending themselves. All you need to do is just stand back and watch the show. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.